Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you're well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more relationship stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too. Let's crack on with today's first story. Much love guys. Now today's first story comes from Wedding Shawl from the Am I the Arsehole subreddit and says, am I the arsehole for taking back a shawl my wife made for a bride-to-be after she was uninvited from the wedding? My wife Lena crochets a lot and often gifts it to friends and family. When her second oldest brother got married, she made the bride a shawl to wear over a dress in the evening. The bride loved it, and ever since, Lena has made shawls for everyone in her family getting married. Now Lena's oldest brother George is getting married again. Lena doesn't have a relationship with George as he was abusive to her as a child, but if she has to see him then she is polite but distant with him. She doesn't want to cut off the rest of her family because of George. I work with George and while we aren't friends, we are friendly at work. Lena encouraged this. When George got moved to my team, I was going to request a transfer, not wanting to expose Lena to George as my team do a lot of get-togethers with our significant others. As it is a family wedding, Lena's mum asked her if she could crochet a shawl for George's fiancée, and Lena agreed. It was arranged that once it was finished, I would take it to work to give to George so that Lena didn't have to see him. Earlier this week, the shawl was completed and I emailed George at work to let him know that I would bring it in today as the wedding is tomorrow. When I got into work this morning, I gave George the shawl and let him know that Lena and I were looking forward to the wedding. Come lunchtime, Lena called me to let me know that George's fiancé had called her and told her she was no longer invited to the wedding, citing the place they are having the wedding and the reception as it is too small for the number they have coming, so are having to make cutbacks. However, I was still invited to the wedding. I was mad at this because they clearly only invited Lena to get a shawl, which to me is just rude. If they had asked Lena outright to make one, she probably would have done because she loves to crochet. On my way out of work, I noticed George wasn't at his desk, but the shawl was. I was still mad that they had used Lena to get a shawl and I just shoved it in my work bag. I left a note on his desk telling George that since Lena was no longer invited, the shawl and I would no longer be attending either. On my way home, I told Lena what I had done and asked her if she wanted to go out instead, so not to waste having a sitter. Lena was upset that I had taken the shawl as it was causing an uproar in her family group chat where people were calling her petty because I took it back. Lena wants me to give it back. I don't think I should. They don't deserve Lena's kindness. However, at the same time, I don't want Lena to be upset with me over George and a shawl. Am I the asshole for taking back the shawl? Edit. I've messaged the group chat letting them know that I took it, and if they should be pissed at anyone, then it should be me. But I would also do it again because no one gets to be a dick to Lena. Prom Queen says to the OP, not the arsehole for standing up for your wife, but it really should have been her call. I can't understand why she would have made them one in the first place if the relationship is that bad. Does she have self-esteem issues? And OP quotes that and says, she does. One of the things George did was make her think she was not worthy of being loved or capable of doing anything of worth. Very Rosie replies that and says a whole family are arseholes, no wonder this poor soul has no self-esteem. They're okay with George and inviting his own sister for no reason, and they have the audacity to expect her beautiful handmade gift. You're an awesome husband for taking it back. I'd put in that transfer to a different team, or better yet, ask that George transfer. You can tell all your work friends how awful George is. You said that you and your wife have socialized with your teammates a lot. They have to have some loyalty to you and her. OP quotes a section of that and says, they're fully aware of how bad she is. I was at the bar while Lena was catching up with one of my co-workers when George arrived at the Christmas party and had a go at her in front of everyone, accusing her of being a stalker and obsessed with him. He even told people that the only reason she was there was because of him. A few of them have had little to do with him since, especially the co-worker Lena was talking to because she got on really well with his late wife. Someone asks about why is the family siding with George, and OP says it's mostly just mother-in-law parroting George has said to her and the other relatives joining in, not knowing the full story. The only person who has stayed out of it is Lena's second oldest brother and his wife. Mother-in-law doesn't see it as rude and is using the headcount story that Lena was told as the reason why. No one is checking the headcount and making amendments that day before the wedding. It's still really weird to me that they're not going to invite the sister, but they're going to invite OP, the unrelated brother-in-law. I feel really bad for Lena in this situation. She's clearly gone through a lot, and and is still trying to please her family by making these gifts, which is just incredibly sad that she's taken her time and her love to make these items and she's getting no respect back from her family. But I can't blame OP for sticking up for Lena in this situation. I know some people may say, this should be Lena's choice. Lena should be making that decision, but they're taking advantage of Lena's kindness. And I think she's struggling to see that. And I think if Lena was in front of me, I'd have to ask her, what is this family bringing to you, apart from the second oldest brother by the sounds of it? What is the rest of them bringing into your life? It doesn't sound like much. They're willing to uninvite you from a wedding after they've used you to get this free shawl that you've made with love and time, and then just uninviting you. Dazzling Walrus says you did the right thing. Her family sounds horrible. Keep the damn thing and convince her she owes them nothing. Why aren't they upset about him uninviting his own sister to his wedding? If she insists on you giving it back, just tell her you lost it or whatever, and she shouldn't let others walk all over her. She's placating them while they mistreat her. Swamp Witch replies that and says, totally agree with you that the uninviting is a greater offense and that the family is whack, but as a crafter, I just want to caution OP against discarding the shawl or selling it without wife's consent. I value my labor and work and would be devastated knowing something like that I worked hard on was lost or sold to a stranger. I'd want it back to keep or gift to someone else I actually like. And while I'd be like OP and would 1000% take it back after being uninvited, I don't think it's fair to strip the wife of agency in this situation, whatever her reasons are. Denying her wish that the sister-in-law receive the shawl is wrong because she's an adult and should be allowed to make these decisions on her own. It's patronizing to force her hand. Her behavior isn't healthy either, and OP should keep standing up for her and encouraging her to go to therapy and to stop putting up with the abuse. But you don't just take away someone's rights because you think they are being a pushover. Not the arsehole to OP, because I don't think you should have to be complicit in your wife's unhealthy family dynamics, and you have every right to not want to deliver the shawl. But at this point, the right thing to do is give the shawl back to your wife and let her make her own decisions. But OP does update the post, and they said, I have absolutely no idea how to post an update and am I the arsehole, so I figured it was best to post it here in case anyone is interested in it. So everyone will be glad to know that I have not given George back the shawl. I mean, part of the reason I haven't given it back is because he's on his honeymoon. I hope it has rained for the 2 weeks. But even if he wasn't, I still wouldn't give it back. Later that evening, Lena apologized for being mad at me. She said she should have never agreed to make the shawl in the first place and was grateful I had taken it back. Lena and I had a long discussion about her family and how they treat her. I told her that I would always stand up for her when it comes to her family because I will stand strong when she can't. I asked her what she thought about going lower contact. We were already low contact with George, his now wife, and her mum. Lena said that she wanted to go no contact with George, his wife, her mum, and to go low contact with everyone else but her second oldest brother and his wife. We call them Michael and Sarah. She said she wanted to do this because of how toxic the group chat had become, which she has now left, and she has shown me that she has left and deleted the chat. We've both blocked everyone but Michael and Sarah. I'm going to wait a couple of weeks before I broach therapy for Lena again. I just want the dust to settle a bit, as I don't want her to feel pushed into anything. The story the wife gave Lena about there not being enough space was bullshit. Michael confirmed that George had told him weeks ago that they were well under numbers for their venue. It was just a shit attempt at a power move. I know some Redditors were concerned about my work life after I took the shawl. I spoke with my manager and told him that Lena had made a shawl for George's wife, but they'd given a shit reason for uninviting her to the wedding the day before the wedding, and I took it back. When I told my manager this, he sighed heavily before telling me that he wished I hadn't taken the shawl because George could make things difficult for me, but that he would have done exactly the same thing because George is a nightmare. I told him that I'd like to move to another team because it wasn't good for Lena to have to be around him. He told me to leave it with him and he would see what he could do. I'd have moved when George was first put on my team, but Lena encouraged me not to, as she didn't want me to rock the boat with her family. I heard back on Monday that we'll be getting moved to another team at the end of the week. The other team is desperate for someone, so when my manager reached out to the other managers to see if anyone had an internal vacancy, this manager bit his arm off. The day of the wedding, Michael called Lena and asked what our plans had been for the day. Michael knew that Lena wasn't invited to the wedding and rightly assumed I wouldn't go if she wasn't welcome. Lena told him that we had planned to go out for dinner and drinks. Michael told her that sounded like a plan and to text him where we were going for dinner. Michael and Sarah had decided to skip the wedding after seeing the meltdown of George, his wife and their mum in the group chat. Apparently, They continued spouting abuse at Lena even though she had left the group chat. When the family turned on me and our children was when Michael and Sarah decided they weren't going to the wedding at all. They were just going to the ceremony after Lena had been uninvited. They messaged George to tell him their flight had been delayed and they wouldn't be able to make it. Their flight wasn't delayed. It was just an excuse they had used and George never responded. Michael had seen George's abuse of Lena firsthand. He had tried to protect Lena where he could, but there was only so much he could do as a child himself and didn't want to be on the receiving end of George's temper either. As an adult, he took the first chance he had to move away from his family while only maintaining contact with Lena. So we went out with Michael and Sarah, having a much better night than we would have done at the wedding. There was no snide comments, no belittling, nothing. Lena was happy as she got to see Sarah, and that's what she was looking forward to. Lena being happy was all I wanted. It's all I ever want, my family to be happy. Both Michael and Sarah's phones did keep going off all night as mother-in-law and George messaging them angry at their non-attendance, especially after Michael posted a picture of the four of us together having drinks on Facebook with a caption about how he was choosing Lena over George going forward because she doesn't use people to get what they want like George did over a crochet shawl. Michael admitted to me later that he did this to anger George because he'd have a meltdown at the reception and then his in-laws could see what an arse he actually is. Given the gleeful messages I got from Michael last week after he had heard back from a cousin who attended, George had a complete meltdown. Lena knows about this post, but she's not comfortable with me posting pictures of her work. She considered unraveling the shawl, but she found it difficult to undo all her hard work, which I understand. It's the very reason I didn't unravel it myself and tell George it was an IKEA shawl. Well, that, and I didn't want to face a mad Lena. After talking with Sarah about what to do with it, she has decided she's going to keep it, but she will dye it. Michael suggested that she wears it to the family Christmas. We aren't going to see Lena's family at Christmas, so it won't be happening anyway. Michael and I are at the same level of pettiness as I had previously suggested. Some people comment on my original post, but I could wear it to work when George is back. I didn't show Lena many of the comments. She doesn't need to see people calling her a doormat or saying she needs to grow a spine. Those people clearly haven't had their spirit completely broken by people who are meant to love them unconditionally, or completely cut out of family events. When George graduated from uni, Lena was left at home. She was 8 years old, left home alone all day. Christmas was spent mostly in her bedroom because her grandmother didn't want Lena around as her presence would just upset George. Until she was 14, then she would sneak out and spend it with me and my family. Lena was just left out of everything. Dad used to work away from home a lot, so he had no idea what was going on. He just assumed Lena liked her own space. Not that she would just stay in her room because she was so used to being neglected by her family. And I think no contact is absolutely the right choice in this situation. Like I was saying at the end of the first post, it's like, what is Lena getting out of that family? It doesn't sound like very much at all apart from abuse. Part of me was like, though, oh, I'd have loved to see that George's face at his wedding when they didn't turn up and they was posting pictures of them eating food and stuff. Wee. But what do you guys make of this situation? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and let's move on to another story. And our next story comes from Logical Carpet 4381 from the Am I the Arsehole subreddit. Doesn't have an update as yet, but it's titled, Am I the Arsehole for telling my wife I'm not going to sacrifice my hobbies just so that I can babysit? My wife Jane, 34 female, and I, 38 male, have been together for 5 years. She also brought my stepdaughter, Emily, 9 female, into our marriage. We have her 4 days a week, Monday to Thursday, while she's at her dad's Friday to Sunday. From the beginning, Jane told me Emily doesn't need a second father figure, as she has her dad to fill that role. I was only supposed to be a trusted authority figure in case she ever needed anything. I didn't mind and tried my best to respect that boundary. She's a sweet child anyway and doesn't cause trouble, so it's not like I have to discipline her. Her father is also a good dad. Emily's dad recently got married and his wife has 2 kids of her own who are at their place Wednesday to Saturday and at their dad's Sunday to Tuesday. Emily and her new step-siblings don't get along at all. They're always fighting and it's pretty toxic. Emily's dad asked Jane if they could change their custody schedule to match his stepkids to keep the children apart. It's not a big deal in and of itself because we don't live far from each other, so picking up and dropping is no issue, and she can easily be dropped off to school no matter where she stays. The issue is my wife agreed to it without consulting me. Jane is currently doing a certification course for the next 12 months, and they have classes on Saturdays from 9 to 5 p.m. She asked me if I can babysit Emily on Saturdays, but I can't because I play golf with my brother and sister on Saturday morning from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. This has been our tradition from before Jane and Emily came into my life, and I had told Jane from much before that it is important to me and my siblings. She asked if I can move it to another day, but that's not possible either because my siblings also have jobs and families of their own, so Saturdays was the best day for us. I told her she can hire a babysitter, but she doesn't want to spend money when I can do it for free. I told her that wouldn't work for me. She then got mad and said golf is stupid and I should put my stepdaughter over my siblings. That pissed me off, so I told her I'm not going to sacrifice my hobbies just so that she can have a free babysitter. For the record, I didn't have anything against Emily. I've babysat her before and she's a good kid. If there was a family emergency or if it was an occasional occurrence, then yeah, I would cancel golf for that day to take care of her, but I can't give up something this important to me for 12 months continuous. She called me a selfish arsehole and slept on the couch last night. So, am I the arsehole? And we're starting the comments with Funny Clerk who says not the arsehole, but I don't get how people expect to date someone with a child and just be totally removed. It's callous thinking. I get not being the primary go-to person in all these stories, but it's so dumb to not expect to fill some parental duties when dating someone with a child. That child is a central part of the person you are dating. You can't just compartmentalize that or treat the child like a chore the bio parent is solely responsible for. I just feel like if you choose to date someone with kids, and at some point you'll get stuck doing some childcare duties, and it shouldn't be such a big deal that you do. Again, it's kind of heartless to date someone with kids and then treat them as a separate entity entirely that you have zero concern for. Basically, people need to stop dating others that have kids if they aren't ready to some extent, even small, to integrate that child into their life. The only excuse is if the child is a full-grown adult. It doesn't matter, but again, a little heartless and naive to think if your partner has young kids that you'll never be relied on somehow for rides, care, or some management. OP responds to that and says, I get what you're saying, but my wife was the one who wanted things to be this way. I was prepared to be a parental figure, but my wife explicitly told me on more than one occasion that I was not supposed to play that role. Whenever I tried to say or do something that I felt was best for Emily, Jane would tell me it's not my responsibility and to not get involved. If she wants me to be a parent now, then she has to want me to be a parent all the time. I'm not a parent on demand who can just turn a switch. I don't think it's fair to either Emily or me. Apprehensive Wave says not the asshole, but this is a really crappy situation that's going to hurt poor Emily the most. Her dad just got remarried and now her entire life schedule and his house is being shifted to accommodate his new stepkids. And now you and her mum are fighting about her time at your place. I'm not saying you should cancel your weekly golf game with your siblings or that you are in any way in the wrong here, but please do what you can to avoid Emily feeling like she isn't wanted in either of our homes. That can seriously damage a kid, and you clearly do care for her. Mundane Planet says, and quotes, she then got mad and said golf is stupid and I should put my stepdaughter over my siblings. Then says the stepdaughter she explicitly told you didn't need an additional parental figure for. The stepdaughter whose custody time was changed without your inclusion. That stepdaughter. Also a spouse dissing their SO's hobbies just to get something over and above that hobby is an arsehole. As this child is your wife's daughter, ostensibly, and put in a camp that is functionally not family to you, then this sounds like a failure plan accordingly for your wife. And as they say, her failure to plan does not constitute a problem for you, not the arsehole. Let's have one more comment from Lady Maynuth who says, in my honest opinion, everyone sucks here. Your wife for not consulting with you before changing arrangements and you for not helping your wife out. Marriage is supposed to be a partnership where each partner contributes and helps the other out when necessary and puts the needs of the family ahead of their own wants. A year is not that long, and who knows, maybe one day you'll want your partner to do something to help out. Don't be surprised if she then tells you to go jump. And for me, I just can't help thinking about that comment where they mention about how Emily's going to be feeling, integrating new step siblings into her life as well and they're not getting on, and how she's going to feel about being pushed out of both houses. I just find that extremely sad, and I hope that they do come to a resolution where Emily isn't feeling in the middle here. But what do you guys make of this situation? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And just a huge thank you from the bottom of my heart for getting involved in today's stories. Your love, your support, your time always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much, and hopefully we'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.